don't know if you guys can see me. Can you guys see me? Hear me? We're good? Cool. Well, thank you for the introduction. You said my name's Katie. I'm with Odell Brewing. If you guys have been in Davidson's over the last couple of years, you'll probably recognize me. I've been following them for quite a long time. They're some of my favorite peoples and one of my favorite places. So thank you, Rebecca and everyone for reaching out and having us do this tonight. So we're really excited about it. Some fun things. We're going to talk through our variety pack and then also make a cocktail with Sippin' Pretty. It's one of my favorite things I've been doing for a while, even before quarantine, but we definitely have gotten very creative during quarantine, you know, so, but just some history of us from the brewery. We've been around for 30 years, so people are familiar, but I don't ever want to assume that everyone knows who we are. But we're based out of Fort Collins. Our main facility is up there. We do have a tap room down here in Denver in the Rhino district, which is really cool. So we have a small satellite tap room and also a brew system down there. So a lot of the things that we are brewing in Denver is for Denver. It doesn't always make it to Fort Collins, just like a lot of the things in our tap room in Fort Collins don't always make it out into Denver or anywhere else. If you haven't been, I definitely recommend it. You can come by and get to-go beers and all that stuff, and our staff is there to help you, but we are open right now for spacious in dining and on our patio as well. So check our website for any of that. But like I said, we've been around for 30 years. We're still family-owned, operated. We are employee-owned as well, which is pretty fantastic. So the Odells, Doug, Wynn, and Corky started the company together, and then have just slowly built it from there. We have grown to a decent size, but we haven't grown beyond our means or what we're comfortable with, which has always been something I've been very proud of, and the Odells have been very passionate about as well. So we're in 19 states, and that's pretty centrally located in the middle of the country. So we just launched California right before everything happened, but we're only in Southern California. But that's the first time that we've hit a coast. So we're not on the East Coast at all. So we want to keep our geographic footprint pretty tight. We want to make sure that our beer stays fresh and delicious for everyone. So in the 30 years, we've definitely come up with a lot of different things. 90 Shilling has been one of our staples since day one. Odell IPA, definitely a staple in my fridge. But tonight we're definitely going to talk about some of the newer things that we've come out with and really seeing how we have evolved as a brewery, and then also how the, just the craft beer community has evolved also, which has been kind of exciting to see. So like Danielle said, please, if there's any moment you have questions, please feel free to come in, but I'll make sure to pause at the end of each beer to allow for some time. To give you the lineup so you're ready, we're going to start with Mountain Standard, move to Drum Roll, we'll go to Tree Shaker, and then we'll end with Sippin' Pretty, and then we'll make that Sippin' Pretty cocktail. I put my glass with ice in the freezer so it kept cold because it's really hot in my house. So if you need to do that, don't want anything melting too much and water down your cocktail. That's the most important thing. You don't want that too much. But so we'll get started with Mountain Standard. Mountain Standard is a great beer in terms of just something new that we've kind of come up with. We've had our, traditional IPAs. Odell IPA definitely falls in that category of a traditional American style IPA. And then over the years, we've come up with, our East Coast and our West Coast. But we really wanted to kind of hone in on, well, what can like a mountain style be, and we love the characters from both of those, but we didn't want to tie it to either one. So Mountain Standard is, definitely a newer take on an IPA. We have some really cool new hops that are in there. 3 of the main that are featured are Cashmere, Sabro, and Strata. May have never heard of those before, and that's okay. The cool thing is those hops, we have actually helped our hop growers kind of pilot grow and now get into the market for more of us to be able to use. If you're familiar with Wolf Picker, which is one of our seasonals, that has been kind of our pilot hop series where we can work with our partners to, hey, grow something really cool. We want to try it. And then let's see if it's something that we can do and use as an industry. And those 3 have kind of come from that pilot system, if you want to say. So they really bring in this nice fruit character. You get some great little bits of like peach and pineapple, but really nice, like kind of juiciness. A very medium to like low bitterness. It's there, but it's not aggressive by any means. It's going to be very balanced. And same with those fruit characters and the hop characters, they're not going to be overpowering either. We really want to make sure that our beers, especially our hop beers, are very balanced and approachable. So even if you're not a hop fan, you'll probably find something that you like out of these, and especially Mountain Standard. I feel like this is a really good one, and especially for me, I think sometimes on a hot day, I love my hops, but I want something that I can really, bring in and taste and be really refreshing. It has a slight haze to it. We don't technically filter any of our beers. We use a centrifuge, but depending on how we use that piece of machinery will determine how much haze or no haze we have in that beer. So this will have a slight haze, especially when you get down to the bottom of it. Give it a little swish and pour it into your glass when you're finished with it, and you'll kind of get a little of that residual yeast. But like I said, this is just a really nice, approachable beer. We actually won a silver GABF for this last year, which was wonderful. It was in the, I believe it was Australian category, but if you look at Australian hops and the type of flavor profiles that they're looking for that category, this fits absolutely in there. It doesn't fit as an American IPA. That's not what we were trying to go for. So like I said, we're kind of unique in coming up with this one, but it definitely found its place. But definitely take a taste of, I really like to use these tulip glasses. If you don't have one, pint glass absolutely works. Use a wine glass if you want to too, if you really want to get some of that aroma. But this is really nice. You get just the pop of those characters, a little bit of that hop is going to come through, but it's going to be very smooth and refreshing and tasting on the palate. It's definitely one of my go-tos. I love it, especially on a almost 100-degree day. Do you guys have any questions? Is there anything that you notice that you really like about this beer, or kind of sets it apart, or something that you found was kind of unique about it? Happy to answer anything that I can. Okay. One other thing to note, sorry, I'm looking at my notes to make sure I don't forget anything. This is the only beer that we brew that we actually triple dry hop. So this beer, especially because it's lower in bitterness, a lot of the hops that we're adding are going to be later in the brew process. So if we're adding hops earlier on, they're going to be heated up for a longer period of time. Less of that aroma and flavor will stay, more of that bitterness will come through. So if we do our hops later in the process, we're going to get more of those characters that we're looking for, especially for this beer. So the triple dry hop, what that means is in fermentation, when that liquid's going to be a little bit cooler, we're going to be adding in more hops to really brighten that flavor and the aroma, especially, that we're looking for. So we're going to add in that 3 times. Some of our beers we maybe do once or twice for those dry hop additions, but this is a really unique process that really gives the Mountain Standard its character. All right, we are going to go on to our next one. Sorry, I'm going to get a little dump bowl for mine. We will move on to drum roll. Now, the reason I did drum roll second, it is a pale ale. It's going to be a little lighter, about 5.3%, but there's a little bit more hop going on. So drum roll is nice. We came out with this 2 or 3 years ago, and actually the Highlands Ranch Brew Fest that Davidson's puts on was the first time that we showcased this beer when it came out, which was really, really cool. So kind of a unique thing that we were able to do. So drumroll is going to have a little bit more haze than the Mountain Standard. Again, in the can, it might settle a little bit, so you might have to kind of swish it, but it's never going to be anything overly hazy or chewy. That's kind of the last thing that we want to go for with some of our bigger bodied or hazier beers, because we really want you to get everything else. But this is great. We're using some newer hops, kind of similar to not the exact hops that are in Mountain Standard, but those newer hop varieties. One of them that's in this is called a Zaka, and that hop is really unique. It was actually found as a native hop, I believe down in New Mexico, and then some hop growers found it and now have kind of cultivated it, and they're growing it more readily available. If you do make it down to our tap room, we do in Denver, we do have one that's specifically an Zaka hop, hopped beer, and you can taste just what that one hop tastes like. But we're using combinations of hops again to really give it that nice, like bright citrus, a little bit of that fruit character to it too. But the body's gonna be a little more, and you're gonna get a little bit more bitterness off of it for a pale ale. But this is gonna be what we call it an American style pale ale. Gonna have a little less of like a malt note than some like English pale ales, but definitely a nice hop character to it too. It was really hard when Mountain Standard came out because this has always been mine. Belgian farmhouse on the nose. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, and it could just be some of that yeast maybe that you're picking up, some of those characters. Sometimes I get that too right when I pour it. I kind of get like some yeast notes. But again, so the IBUs are going to be lower on both of these, and I can look that up. You would think that I would know those working for the brewery for 7 years. The reason that I kind of laugh when I say that, the International Bittering Unit is definitely a scientific measurement of what that is in your beer. We definitely are kind of going on what your perceived bitterness is. So there are some times, and actually it's like this crazy kind of chemical thing, especially with dry hopping, that you can actually produce a higher IBU beer, but maybe get less perceived bitterness from it. Once you get really up there in the IBUs, you're absolutely going to get more of that bittering character on your palate. But a lot of times what we are looking for from Odell is really just what that perception is when you drink it. So before we're done, I will look up specifically what they are for these 3 hop base and let you know. But they are going to be a little lower. I'm going to say maybe 30 to 40 IBUs on those ones. Your palate can only go up to 100 IBUs. After that, there's no difference in what it can or can't taste. But there's actually been some really cool articles out from different hop growers and things on what we really are getting from an IBU. And I think a lot of people are kind of coming to this, well, there is a difference between perceived bitterness and then what our actual measurement is. So we're definitely not pushing to make that measurement higher. We're working to make sure that your palate can keep drinking these beers over and over, and we're not going to burn you out, if that makes sense. Do you guys, is there anything that anyone wants to know between these two? They're kind of similar, but they definitely have some different characters to them. I like a little bit more of the bitterness that I can get on the drum roll. Like as I drink it, it kind of like layers up in the back, and it gives me just a little bit more of that hop, but totally depends on what day it is because these both have turned into my favorites. All right, well, if there's no comments, and we can open it up later too and kind of discuss more if you guys like, but moving on, we'll go to Tree Shaker. If anyone has been familiar with the brewery, Tree Shaker we've had out for quite a few years. We came out with this in 2013 for the first time. It was originally in our 750 milliliter bottles. I still have, I think, one of the bottles that I used for oil and vinegar, but that was peach base instead of the mango that we did now. We work with some farmers out on Palisade on the western slope that we get a lot of our fruit from. So when we moved peach out of Tree Shaker this year, we put it into Peach Stand Rambler. A big reason for that was because our fruit farmers have been used to us taking these fruits. So the last thing we wanted was to, ruin any relationship and put anybody out of being able to sell product. And we love their product, so we want to keep using it. But we get our raspberries and cherries for free from them. Any fruit that we can get, we will source from them first. But we've been making Peach Shaker with Tree Shaker with the peach for quite some time. We wanted to switch it up. It's been a great beer, but we wanted to try a different fruit character with it. I have always said that Tree Shaker is the beer that if you don't like IPAs, you'll probably like this one. If you don't like fruit beers, you're probably going to like this one because it's not overly bitter, too much hop. It's also not going to be too much fruit. This traditionally has been some of the few hop beers with fruit in them. I think now we're getting to see a little bit more of them. Mango is actually a very hard fruit to brew with. So we definitely have seen some of these mango IPAs coming out of the market, to the market. One thing that you can trust from Odell, we don't use extracts. We're not going to put in anything but the real ingredient, the real material into our beer. So with that, the fruit is going to be subtle, because actually if we put in too much fruit, it bonds with the hops differently and can create a very bitter, abrasive beer. So I've had a couple other ones out there. They're okay until you kind of start getting to the end. So just be careful with some of them, because like I said, mango is actually a very hard one to brew with, but we spent a lot of time and a lot of diligence to make sure we can use the real fruit product with our hops to make this awesome beer. And you can just smell the mango right away. It is awesome. But again, we don't want to put too much of the fruit in there, because we want you to taste the hops. And traditionally, Tree Shaker has kind of always been that way. It's been a little bit more subtle on the fruit, so you get the hop, but also a little bit more subtle on the hops, so you can get the fruit, if that makes sense. And I didn't see that last chat come through. Let me see. So the imperial, so what imperial means is that we're going to be a higher alcohol. It's not necessarily, you can say double, but it's not necessarily going to be double. So Tree Shaker is going to be 8%, where like Odell IPA is going to be more of like a 7. So your single IPAs can fall between like a 5.5 and a 7.5. An imperial can go from kind of a 7.5 up to about like a 10 or so percent alcohol by volume. And then from there, when you start getting bigger, then you call it a triple. So just kind of these windows of alcohol. So when you see imperial or double, you know there's going to be a little bit more going on. If you guys are familiar with Mercenary, that's our double IPA, and that's like 9.3%. You get a little bit more heat on that. You don't necessarily get the heat from the alcohol on Tree Shaker. So at 8%, it still falls into that imperial, but it's not going to be too much at the same time. But it is really good, so be careful, because it'll get you in trouble if you drink too many of them. So we get a lot of our hops from the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, mainly like Washington, Oregon. That's where the majority of the hops are coming for the country. We do have some hop farmers here in Colorado on the western slope. Hops just take a while to establish themselves. They need certain climate and temperature. There is a hop farm just north of the brewery, north of Fort Collins. And unfortunately, on the eastern slope, we have a lot more hail and those kind of weather things that can happen. So you really have to be careful on where you're putting your hop fields and your farms. They can absolutely grow out here on the east coast, or east slope, excuse me, but like I said, the weather can be a factor. So we have used some of the Colorado hops in the past. The original Mountain Standard, we would use some for those. And we will for pilot batches, some of our fresh hop things. But for the size and scale that we're now on, the Northwest can really work with that. And we've been working with them forever. But like I said, the majority of the hops that the country is using are going to come from that area. And just kind of like our wine and stuff too. Okay, yeah, if you go back, it's interesting when you notice that going back to drum roll, and I like that you have multiple of them, you're going to get a different character in the malts and the hops. And this one, like I said, it doesn't have too much more bitterness, but definitely different bodies. And it'd be interesting to try drum roll after Tree Shaker if we had done it originally. But I think the fruit would have kind of taken over some of the fruit notes that you would have got from drum roll. But it is really interesting to kind of go back and forth. But Tree Shaker, I get that mango on the back and then just a little bit of the bitterness on the tongue, but it's so smooth. This is definitely one of my favorites. I really like this one. I'm glad you guys enjoy it as well. Those are kind of all that for the hop stuff. Does anyone have any other questions or anything on the hops before we move over to Sippin' Pretty? I hope I'm not going too fast for anybody, but yeah, they're all very unique in their own way. Really good. So And the variety packs, we always are going to make sure we have one of the seasonals in there, and then also kind of showcase some of our year-round offerings that are in 6-packs too. So this is great. Oh, a jalapeno would be great. If you eat these with tacos, salsa, anything like that, it goes so well. Yeah, a little bit of that heat and that spice would be really nice. We're going to do a beer cocktail. IPAs are kind of fun to play with too. You did kind of like a jalapeno margarita and then topped it with a tree shaker. I bet that would be awesome. Yeah, definitely. I was a bartender for a really long time. It's stuck with me, and it's just fun, right? We don't have to stick to one thing. We can get creative. Yeah. Good. All right. We'll move on to the Sippin' Pretty. Do a little palate cleanse. If you have a chip or some water, anything like that, I always just suggest that, moving from like a hop to something with a little bit more fruit and a little bit of that tartness. But the Sippin' Pretty has been just an amazing beer overall. It has been a staple in my fridge. My roommate will not let it go if we start running low, like down to a 6-pack. She reminds me. So she's definitely lucky that she's got a good connection with beer, but we'll make sure it stocks because we love it. But Sippin' Pretty was one that we wanted to come out with to really change how we approach some of the styles in our portfolio, I guess you could say. We love our hops. We love showcasing different things, but there's also different drinkers out there that may not want to hop and maybe want to switch it up. And so this was one that we really wanted to work on, especially with how we do sours. If you guys are familiar with Freak, which is our Framboise Creek blend, it's now available in 4-packs, which is cool, but that's a barrel-aged sour, raspberry cherries. It's phenomenal, and it's a bigger sour. We wanted to have something that's a little bit more approachable. I love sours as well, and there's definitely some sours where it's great until I get to the very end, and then it's just kind of too much, a little too acidic, and it can wreck your palate, just like drinking too many big IPAs can kind of do the same thing. But Sippin' Pretty is a little bit different. We really wanted it to be something that you could kind of keep coming back to. Have some different super fruits in here, guava, acai, and elderberry, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of lime. So kind of playing on a goza. It's kind of between like a goza and a Berliner. A light sour, I just kind of say that it's got that really nice tartness like you would get from a lime. But you'll definitely get some of the salt on the nose right off the bat. And it's just going to kind of bounce out there. And we're using Himalayan pink sea salt, so we're using some really good stuff in there too. But and the color is just gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's one of those that's kind of contagious. If you saw someone drinking, you'd be like, what's that? I want to know what that one is. And the can too. The can is really unique because all the plants on here are all native Colorado plants, even though it has a very tropical kind of vibe to it. And you can see the columbine, but there's some ferns and some other things on there. So really unique in kind of how we presented it. Also a really cool thing. Yeah, the designs are really neat, and we've worked, our internal graphic designer has kind of come up with all of these, and then we've worked with a woman, she's kind of based out in Seattle, I believe, but she worked for a marketing company that we were with maybe like 12 or 13 years ago, and she kind of helped us with our designs, and she left that company, but we definitely stayed in touch with her, and we'll come up with the initial design and we'll send it to her, and she'll kind of give it that life and that color and that pop and kind of change it. She's now a world-renowned muralist. Her name's Mona Karen, and she did our mural downtown in Reno. So when you come down and see it, that's hers, and that was the first mural that she did in Denver, which is really cool, and hopefully she'll be able to come back and do some other ones for us. But yeah, so it's definitely a collaboration, and she's worked with us on so many things, and it's been phenomenal because we'll kind of go back and forth on stuff, and she's definitely part of that artwork, which is awesome. Oh, one other thing that I was going to say about Sippin' Pretty, a really cool campaign that we did. I'm sorry if I'm going on a tangent, but it's kind of exciting. We did this for May and June, but we teamed up with 15 different river organizations across our footprint. And the campaign was called Make It Pretty. And we're going to do this moving forward every spring. But we took $1 from our sales of our case sales from Sip and Pretty, give it back to these river organizations. So it's about $40,000. We can't make beer if we don't have good water. And a lot of things got changed with everything that happened, but we were trying to do a lot of river cleanups, and we actually were able to still do some. We try to do like a virtual one here in Denver, but we're definitely going to do this again and get people to come and clean up the rivers with us, and also support the rivers by drinking a great beer. So it's really cool. And drinking this now, you guys are still a part of this. It's pretty exciting. So keep your eye out next year for it. But it's just a really feel good give back, and a lot of these organizations have been just overwhelmed with just what they're now able to do with the contributions that we give them, which is pretty fantastic. So. Good beer and a good cause. You can't go wrong. Back to it, I didn't even get a sip yet, but yeah, you get some nice salt, like I said, on the nose, but it kind of dissipates like after it kind of opens up a little bit. But the fruit is awesome. And I don't know about you guys, but a lot of people tell me they taste grapefruit. And I think it's just a combination of the fruits and on the palate. Especially elderberry and acai can be, they're not super bold, but they give like a really nice depth. And then when you bring in the guava, it's just phenomenal. I think that this is just a really great beer. And again, we're using nothing but real fruit, real juices to add in here. It's a great beer. Yeah, the guava just really gives it that nice like body to it, I think. Yeah, and it's a lighter beer. 4.5. I don't know why I said 3. 4.5% on this. So really easy drinking. You can definitely have a couple of them. It's quenching and slightly hydrating, especially with the salt in there. I bike a lot, and so I'm trying to be in tune with what my body is, getting rid of, and then also what I need to put back into my body. And you definitely need salt, especially right now in the heat. And beer is actually good for you in small amounts. I'm not a medical expert, please do not hold me to this, but like post rides, and my sister even says that she does a lot of gardening, and she's like, when I get done, I drink a Sip and Pretty and I'm just like quenched and I feel better, and you're kind of putting some things back in your body, which is really unique. So like I said, in moderation, not a ton, but thank you. I know, right? People laugh, but it's true. And there's been some actually really interesting research to kind of look up. Yeah. So yeah, the guava, but it's good. So I was looking at Chad's, and yeah, it's really great. I like that body, like I said. How do you add the fruit flavors? Is it during the fermentation or after? So we do a secondary fermentation. So we'll do that initial fermentation, get some of the sugars from the initial malt bill, and then we'll add these back in, and then we'll eat some of those sugars again. But the initial malt bill is going to be really low, so that we're still obtaining this lower ABV on it. But yes, it's going to be during fermentation when it's in the tanks too. Yeah, sounds really good. Do you guys have any other questions or anything else? We can move on to our cocktail if you're ready. Again, just putting all the good things together. You're really excited when I mentioned something about that. Like the subtleness of the mango. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's not in your face, and we really want it to be balanced. And I think that's the biggest word when you come to anything from Odell, is that that there's going to be a good balance on it. So, unless if you're going for a barrel sour, that's going to be real, that what you're getting into. But yeah, we want the sour to be really good and not to overpower you. And the same with the fruit, and the same with the hop. We want it to be approachable. And I agree. I think the mango, sometimes I get a little worried. I'm like, oh, is there going to be enough? And especially learning about how mango and hops kind of interact and talking to my brewers. But after drinking it, I was like, this is perfect. I don't want any more mango, because I still can taste the hops and I can still get some of those characters from the hop. Yeah, so it's a really nice balance. I'm glad that you saw that as well. Really good. All right, well, if you guys are ready, we can get to our cocktail. So I'll let everyone have a second to get what you need. Glass with some ice. ginger beer, tequila, lime. I don't ever make anything too sweet, so I don't add any sugar or agave or anything. I think we can get enough from the ginger beer. But as we walk through, I'll definitely tell you some modifications and substitutions that you can do if you want everybody's flavor profiles a little bit different. So I'll give everyone a second to kind of get their stuff together. I'm gonna get my glass of ice. I use these glasses for everything. They're really good. And really it's just going to be a really nice basic cocktail, and I hope you guys enjoy this and kind of think a little bit differently when you're kind of approaching your beer and approaching some of your cocktails. I think beer cocktails are a very unique thing that we can start approaching a little bit more, especially here in Colorado. We really like both of those things, but Sippin' Pretty has just made some really phenomenal drinks, and this is just a really great go-to. Like I said, my roommate loves Sippin' Pretty, and when I kind of turned her on to this, it's been one of the favorites, you know. So, but I really liked the jalapeno comment from whoever did that. I really think that would go well with a tree shaker, so that might have to be something else that we come up with. You guys feel ready? Do you need another moment or anything? I'll take that as we're ready. Okay. Yeah, so like I said, pretty basic details on the mix. So I really found that ginger goes really nicely with Sippin' Pretty. So I started doing ginger beer, so kind of making this, I would do margaritas quite a bit, like a margarita, and then do like half wood Sippin' Pretty, but then kind of started going towards like almost a mule idea, and I really like that ginger that comes through on a ginger beer. So we're gonna do just like your basic either ounce and a quarter, ounce and a half shot of tequila, and then like I said, I don't like a lot of sweetness in my cocktails traditionally. So I'm gonna do like 1 part ginger beer to 2 parts Sippin' Pretty. If you like to have a little bit more sweetness, do more of like a half and half. That's really fine. And really just kind of find your blend on it. If you want a little bit more of that ginger and that character, then just do, you know, 2 parts ginger beer, 1 part Sippin' Pretty on it. But I really like the character that the beer brings to it, but then also giving that ginger kind of backbone. And then the lime just kind of comes in, you know, what you would use in a mule, but also it really plays with the tartness of the beer also. So we'll go ahead and I'll make sure I can keep everything up here for you guys. So, and I usually use like a lighter tequila. So you're getting that character from it, but it's not going to be too overpowering. So go ahead and add in your tequila. I'm not going to use a shaker just because there's carbonation involved. If you have you know, you could do kind of like a little bit of a shake, but I just do a stir method. I think that that's best. I found these nice little bottles of ginger beer. So again, like I said, this glass that I'm using is a 12-ounce glass. So it's a little bit bigger if you're using like an 8-ounce rocks. Kind of eyeball it from there. But I'm going to do 1 part of the, here it is, of the ginger beer. And then kind of top it with that Sippin'. It just gives it a nice little zest. And then finish this off with some lime. And again, I like using the bigger glasses because it gives me some room to kind of work with. And then just give it a nice stir and make sure all that tequila is just not sitting down on the bottom. But again, please change it to what your flavor profile likes. I think that there's plenty of sugar. I don't really need to add any agave or anything. If you're doing a margarita, I probably would. I would love to go over the recipe again. Oh, that's nice. So it's going to be either an 8-ounce rocks glass. I'm using a 12-ounce tulip for what I'm doing. Ice. I'm using just kind of your basic shot glass. So I think this is 1.25 ounces. shot of tequila, and then we're gonna do about 1 part ginger beer to 2 parts Sippin' Pretty. So there's gonna be more of that Sippin' Pretty in there. So you can still get that color, but it's gonna lighten up a little bit on there. Squeeze of lime, a wedge of lime. Again, if you want something a little bit more tart, you add in 2 of them in there. If you're using lime juice, just give it like 1 kind of nice squirt on there. But it's very much able to kind of adapt to your flavor profile of what you're going for. But not too sweet, not going to be too tart, not going to be overly boozy in that way, but you're going to get characters of everything. I put a little more lime because I like it. Yeah, it's really nice, isn't it? So yeah, and if you have a copper mug, you could absolutely put it in a copper mug like you would a traditional mule, but it's kind of a mix between, mule, almost like a margarita kind of thing, and but the fruit of the Sippin' Pretty just goes so well. It's a really nice one with like gin also. You can do definitely vodka, but I like the lighter alcohols if I'm making something with this cocktail. Oh yeah, if you did a little salt, like a Paloma, that would be great. And you could even add in a little bit of grapefruit juice and kind of play with that flavor. Did anyone else taste, when I mentioned that, did you guys taste that kind of grapefruit? Like I mentioned, some people do. I kind of forget about it until someone's like, I taste a lot of grapefruit. I'm like, oh yeah, I can kind of see that. But yeah, it's really refreshing. And the one thing, and this is something that I tell a lot of restaurants and bars, and even right now we're having to get very creative with, kind of how we're approaching our beverages. But the nice thing about this is that this is lower in ABV, so you don't have to worry too much about, adding big to big, right? But as you drink this, pour some more Sippin' Pretty in there and just kind of see how it changes a little bit. But you already have the can open. But it's nice to kind of see where the flavors change a little bit when you add in a little bit more beer. And then again, if you wanted to add in a little bit more ginger, you can as well. How I came to this recipe, I would just start kind of shaving ginger and kind of topping off some of my cocktails. And then I was like, oh, I'm just going to use a ginger beer. That makes a lot of sense. So I really think the flavors go well together. Does everyone like it? Agree? Hopefully. And any other comments or questions, please, I would love to kind of hear from you guys. And I really appreciate all your feedback and all the questions so far too. Yeah, I like that you say surprisingly, because I think sometimes it's like, wait, what? Like we can do that? And then as soon as you do, you realize it can be a really nice combination. Yeah, I'm glad that you like the ginger and the Sippin' Pretty. It makes a really nice cocktail. It just really adds on a refreshing character to it, I think, especially for the summertime. Well, great, you guys. I mean, I'm here. I'm happy to answer anything. What are your favorite beers, must tries at each of the brewery locations? From our breweries that we have, yes, like I said, that Azaka one is really cool. We have down here in Denver, there's one called the Juiciest one. It's a really nice, like juicy IPA. That one's really cool. And we also have some other unique things. I think the Juiciest, and then we have this golden ale on called Open Conversations. It's a really cool collaboration that we did with a mental health organization out of Chicago to kind of bring awareness to mental health and suicide prevention and education. And it's just a really nice golden ale. It's not too malty. It's crisp, it's clean, and it's a little bit different that, we can really go on these hop tangents and our sours and all this stuff. And that's in the Open Conversation is going to be in both locations, which is really cool. The Juiciest that I said is going to be down here in Denver. I don't get it up to Fort Collins that often, and I was just up there last week. And what did we, sorry, you're gonna have to give me a moment. I can't remember. I was only up there really quick, so I don't always get a time to try some of the beers up in Fort Collins, but they are absolutely kid friendly. You can definitely bring the kiddos, bring some food, some games, whatever you need. And we're doing a really great job right now, like helping people sit socially distance apart, QR codes for the menus. The taproom staff is wonderful in getting you dog friendly, absolutely. Fort Collins, we're not allowing anyone to sit inside, so it's all the patio. So dogs are absolutely welcome. Downtown here, you can sit inside. Dogs can't be inside, but our patios are open, and they just opened up Larimer to be able to extend out. So dogs are absolutely welcome on our patios as well, but we want to make it as accommodating as possible. And like I said, we're teaming up with different food trucks and stuff, but please bring food and any of those things that you're comfortable with. And our staff is absolutely there to help you with everything. But the tap rooms are great. You're going to get a cool experience from our brewers. Brent Cordell has been a brewer of ours for almost 20 years, which is pretty fantastic. And he moved down here to run the brew system in Rhino, and his beers are incredible. Like they're amazing. He's brewed every single beer that we've pretty much done. So he definitely has that Odell hand in it. That he gets really unique in his processes and the hops that he's using, and he just makes solid beer. So if you haven't visited, definitely do. And even, like I said, even if you're just getting some beer to go, some crowlers to go, stuff like that, you can at least see the tap room and get a little bit of that feel for it. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Any other questions, comments, anything like that? I'm happy to stay on for a little while too if anybody wants to come on with anything, but I really appreciate your time and letting me be here with you guys today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Katie. We really appreciate you being here. And for next week, we're excited to have Katie back again, which will be fun. She's going to be 2 weeks from now. I'm sorry, not next week, 2 weeks from now. She'll be actually talking about the wines that Odell is actually talking about. So do you just want to give like a quick little synopsis?
Yeah, I absolutely will. Thank you. Yeah, so we just started a new project. It's called the OBC Wine Project. I think I have a can that I can show. Don't worry, guys, it's all right here. So we started a new, pretty much wine line. It's a separate, legally it's a separate entity from Odell. It's still under the same umbrella, but due to licensing, we can't make wine in our brewery. We can't make beer in our winery. But we've been trying to expand our fermentation portfolio for a long time, and we didn't want to really go down the seltzer route, and we're trying to, okay, well, do we do spirits, but there's still like time, and Mountain Standard is actually a really good like a segue into like how this all came up. So Strata, which is in our Mountain Standard, is grown from a farm in Oregon called Goshi Farms, and the Strata hop is literally grown next to the Pinot Gris grape, and the Pinot Gris is the basis for our white blend. And so that's where we've realized that we have these partners in our industry already that we can keep working with. And this is also a place where we can craft. So we went for the can route. One can is 2 glasses. We have a winemaker, we have a facility. We're doing a lot of our stuff there. We're getting custom crush and doing our custom blends and coming up with some really neat things. So a really neat adventure. We want you guys to still trust the Odell name and know that it's something that you can come to, and it will continue to change, which is awesome. So yeah, so please join me in 2 weeks for the wine project. I'm hoping to get our winemaker on. He's fantastic. He's been in the industry for quite a long time, and he's definitely been a lot of the passion behind what we came up with this initial launch. So it's gonna be really cool. And right now, with participating, you can get $2 off wine at the canned wine at Davidson's, which is awesome. Yeah. See, I know 90 shilling, you can never go wrong with 90 shilling, right? Oh, cool. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much. And I love to hear the stories and the connections that you guys all have. I mean, like I said, we've been around for a while. So it was the grapes and the brewing. Okay, so we've done it in the past. We had two beers that we um, came up with. One was called Jaunt, which was a white wine barrel aged Riesling blend with a blonde ale, and then we a must was a Tempranillo, and this is all must, so pre-fermented grape juice. But the Tempranillo was blended in with a porter, and it was called a must, and it was phenomenal. I wonder if I have a. That's what my olive oil's in, is a must. But yeah, so we've done stuff in the past, and we're definitely going to try to do some of these blends and hybrids because that's where we can keep having fun with both projects. Yeah, absolutely. Did I miss another one? So we're going to taste all four of the wines for next time. We have a white, which is the Pinot Gris blend, a rosé with bubbles, and then a red blend. I definitely recommend, and especially with the $2 off it, it makes it really approachable to get those. And that would be an equivalent to two bottles of wine. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a must try. The wines are great. And especially, you know, I don't always need to open a whole bottle. So it's great to have two glasses to be able to cook and do my thing. So, it's the flavor profile. We can definitely kind of work with some of those flavors and especially with a little bit of oak and the base of our beer. So they'll work together. We haven't come out with them in a while. There's still some around, but we'll come up with more. Other beer cocktails, yeah, Sippin' Pretty's been my base for a lot of things. I do like some things with IPAs. The Mountain Standard has been really nice because it kind of gives that citrus, especially if you have something with maybe a little bit more sweetness in it. It can kind of like balance that out. But I can absolutely put some things together and give it to Rebecca and Danielle, and we can kind of to share some more of these. And I mean, maybe that's something that we can do in the future, is a cool beer cocktail team up on something. But my recommendation is take some of the cocktails, think of the cocktails that you like, think of the flavor profiles that are in them, and then kind of look at your beer and see what might work. But like I said, margarita was Sippin' Pretty, awesome. You can, I've done like some Aperol spritz too. So instead of using Prosecco, use a Sippin' with that. But Sippin' Pretty makes such a good base for it, but we can get creative with other ones. The Peach Stand Rambler, which is a seasonal that we still have, and that's going to be more peach, but that makes some, if you did like mint and gin, a little bit of like agave, and then the peach, it's perfect. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Ooh, yeah. Tequila old fashioned. I love tequila old fashions. Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, we can, like I said, we can get creative.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Katie. If there's any last minute questions, feel free to ask them. If not, then thank you again for being here. And hopefully you guys join us in 2 weeks for the wine tasting, which should be just as awesome. If you enjoyed this, I'm sure you'll enjoy that. So I'll put up the list of the beers to be that you'll need to, or I'm sorry, the wines that you'll need to go grab and everything on our website. So watch out for that. And other than that, thank you again for being with us, and hope to see you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you everyone. I really appreciate it. If you see me in Davidson's, please say hi. I always like it.